Craft's first carbon-plated shoe was the CTM Ultra Carbon version 1 back in January of 2021. And while it was highly anticipated, it didn't quite deliver. And since then, Craft still hasn't really been able to break into that top tier of race product. But this is the Kype Pro, and it's using a new XX foam and a unique carbon fiber plate. But is that all enough to lift Craft to that next level? It's time to lace up the Kype Pro and take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kafuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Craft Kype Pro. But before I give you your thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Kype Pro, and let's start with the specs. Although I guess before we get to the specs, we have to step back even further, and I want to acknowledge that it looks like this product should be called Kype Pro, but Craft is a Swedish brand, and the way that you would say Kype is Kype, so the shoe is called the Kype Pro. Now let's get to those specs. This is a 40mm stack height shoe with an 8mm drop, giving us 32mm of stack height in the forefoot. And in this midsole, there's only one kind of foam. It's what Craft is calling its XX foam. Craft uses a 2-layer designation to describe their foams. Now there's 2 layers of it, a top and bottom layer, and there's a split heel design that comes through here. So there's a big cavity going down through this center channel of the bottom of the shoe. And what that XX foam is, it's Arkema Pebax. So Pebax, the logo that you're familiar with and the trade name that you're familiar with, that's the Pebax that's in this shoe. But they're using a slightly denser formulation of that Pebax. So I guess even within Pebax, there are different grades and levels of Pebax that they can use. Now, the difference between Peba and Pebax is that Pebax is a trade name like Kleenex, and Peba is a product name like nasal tissue or facial tissue. I think that's the word that you would use. Now, in between those 2 layers of foam, there is an Arris, A-R-R-I-S, carbon fiber. I guess we'll call it plate. It's not really a plate. It serves the function of a plate, and it's in the position that a plate would be. And you can kind of see how unique it is from the bottom of the shoe in that split heel design, the channel that it creates. But it is kind of like the scaffolding or concepts of a plate. And there's a lot of holes cut out into it. To me, it almost looks like it's 3D printed, but I don't think that's what is going on here. But it has a really unique plate shape design. One, to accommodate the split heel design, there is carbon that goes along these 2 walls of the heel that are here, and there's not as much carbon in this little centered channel piece. And then even in the forefoot of the shoe, there's just holes cut out. The idea with that is that it saves on a lot of weight, and I think it's going to make the plate less rigid. So this isn't so much of a carbon propulsion type of plate, but I think it's more just to stabilize the foams that are in the shoe. Now, on the outsole, protecting all of this foam is a Vittoria rubber outsole compound material. Vittoria is a cycling company. Now on the upper, we have another trade name, Aero Mesh, but that's a Craft product. This is another one of those kind of, I call them striated fiber materials, where it kind of looks like a muscle that's kind of being like torn apart. That's in the design of this shoe, but this is, I guess, less striated than some of the other ones that I've seen before. But what we're getting with this type of fiber and this type of material is something that is very strong, but also flexible and very breathable. There is a knit tongue here that's built into the shoe in kind of a booty type construction, and there is an extra loop over here in case you need to do a lace lock, and then the whole thing is finished off with a pull tab. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a very respectable race weight, 198 grams, or just under 7 ounces. Now that we've talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what this shoe is like on the roads. The Kype Pro is a firm carbon plated racer. It's not quite as firm as what we saw in some of the earlier craft race product like the CTM Ultra Carbon 1 or version 2, but it's not as soft and squishy as we saw in the Craft Pure Trail version 1, that CR supercritical foam. It's somewhere in the middle. There's some softness to the compression of this foam when your foot hits the ground, but there is a really great quickness to the decompression. So it's firm with a really quick bounce. It's very bouncy, very pingy. I feel like the shoe is just kind of ricocheting off the ground while giving a little bit of comfort in there. So it's not a completely rock solid shoe. It's not like running in a race flat. And quite the contrary to that, I think because of the tall stack height and because of this split heel design, which Craft says is designed to minimize surface area and decrease ground contact time. But I feel like because of this split heel design, the shoe is pretty unstable in the turn. So if you got sharp corners in your race coming up, this is a shoe that you're going to have to slow down as you make that turn. And ultimately, I feel like this shoe is really designed to not spend all that much time back here in the back of the shoe at all. It's definitely more of a forefoot striker shoe. I feel like I'm on not only just a trampoline, but like a very focused amount of force, like a pogo stick that's really bouncing very quickly off the ground in this shoe. And I feel like as I get fatigued in it, there is definitely a bit of a penalty in the response if you're spending more time in the middle or into the back of the shoe. So I don't think it's a really great shoe for heel strikers. And I also don't really think it's a great shoe for midfoot strikers either. I feel like it's a great shoe if you have a really clean forefoot foot strike and your feet are strong enough to keep that foot strike and that gait clean throughout the entire duration of your race. Now, I use this for a variety of different paces and distances. I took it out for some very fast and short repeats, and I absolutely love the pinginess of the shoe. The way it just bounces and ricochets right off the ground was really nice for when I wanted to turn the shoe over really quickly, even despite the fact that I'm not really a fast turnover type of guy typically. It felt really great for me to try and run quickly in this shoe. And even when I backed off the pace a little bit and got to kind of where I think this shoe is more intended to be used, more for that marathon and half marathon distance, as I was running moderate paces, getting into that marathon effort type of range, I felt like the shoe still did a really great job of feeling really nice and bouncy, and the firmness didn't really bother me all that much, even though I tend to love really squishy, soft shoes. And so I feel like for the purposes of racing, for the purposes of hard workouts, when you're doing a lot of stuff either from marathon effort down into threshold type of efforts down to 10K and 5K paces, it has a really great pace versatility that I think really works, assuming you can get along with the slight extra firmness that this shoe has. Some phrases that I've used in other shoe reviews and super shoe reviews have been like that the foam here is sinewy or almost chewy, kind of like a well-chewed piece of bubblegum. And that sounds kind of disgusting and not what you really want in a shoe. But if you think about it, having that kind of like rubberiness, that bounciness, that kind of toughness that is going to last over the duration of a longer effort, like a marathon, like a half marathon, actually is really quite nice and can be enjoyable for certain types of runners depending on your preferences. So overall, I think that this is a really nice step forward for Craft. I love to see the progress that they're making in the road race product category, but I don't think this is gonna quite get people into that top tier. And mainly that's because even though there's really great pace versatility, I just don't think this is a shoe that's going to have really wide appeal because of the fact that it's so unstable in the midfoot and heel, because of the fact that it's kind of that sinewy, chewy, very pingy type of race product that really only works well for forefoot strikers. Even though I appreciate the fact that this bucks the trend where race shoes I think are getting to be just a little bit too soft, I still think that this shoe isn't going to appeal to everyone. For the people that this shoe is designed for, I think that you're gonna really like it. If you like to have a really good amount of bounce and aggressiveness in your carbon plated shoe, if you like a shoe that reminds you that you're getting tired and you need to make sure that your foot strike and your gait cycle is clean, like I like those things, I think that you can really get along well with this shoe, but I think that it's a pretty narrow subsegment of the carbon shoe purchasing public. Now let's go over the buying guide and we'll also discuss some alternatives. The Craft Kype Pro is an aggressive carbon-plated racer. And while it has great pace versatility from 5K paces all the way through marathon racing, I'm just not sure that this shoe is going to have really broad appeal. It does have a bit of a retro feel to it, and if you are looking for a little bit more firmness in the bounce of your race product, the Kype Pro could be the perfect marathon racer for you. But this shoe comes in at $300, and I just think that's way too much to pay for this shoe. Let's talk about some of the alternatives that are out there and see what price those shoes come in at. I think the first shoe that I think about when I run in the Kype Pro is from another European brand, and that's Salomon out of Annecy, France. It's also using a PIBA compound in the midsole and also has a carbon fiber plate. And I also feel like it's attracting the same type of runner, a 4-foot runner that wants a little bit of firmness to their bounce. Now, the Salomon S Lab Phantasm 2 does come in quite a bit heavier than the Kype Pro, and it doesn't quite have as much bounce as the Kype Pro does. The bounce on the Kype Pro is really quite nice. But this shoe comes in at a significant discount, although it started out at $275. People complain about that $275 price so much that Salomon reduced that price, and now full retail is $250. Now, the other shoe that I think we should compare against the Kype Pro is a shoe that doesn't necessarily speak to the same runner, but has a lot of the same kind of concepts going into its construction, and that's from Mizuno. This is the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. Now, this is a shoe that also uses a kind of a split heel design, and it also uses a foam that I think is going to be too firm for most runners. Now, they're using Pebax Renew as at least part of the ingredients for this midsole foam here, and that's a Pebax compound that uses castor beans as the source for the oil that goes into making midsole foams. And like in the Kype Pro, I feel like the plate in the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 really isn't doing a lot of that kind of propulsive stuff that we're looking for in race product, but it's doing a lot of stabilizing work. Now, these two shoes I think are designed for very much different runners. The Kype Pro is more for 4-foot strikers, and the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 is more for like mid-foot or even heel strikers, and the firmness of the shoe emphasizes the fact that you're supposed to really roll through it. So there isn't as much bounce to this shoe as there is in the Kype Pro, but I feel like if you're looking for something that's a bit more firm, that's a great shoe to take a look at. Now, that shoe comes in at $250, but it's been around for a while. In fact, they're on the Wave Rebellion Pro 3 now, and even that's been out for a minute. So you can find the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 at a discount, a significant one of $150, so half the price of what the Kype Pro is asking for. So hopefully those comparisons give you some thoughts on some shoes that you could consider if you are looking for a shoe that's in the slightly firmer category of race product. If you have any other questions about any of the shoes that I talked about today, feel free to put in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?